Welcome to Conversations for the Animals with Houston PetSet. I am Lisa Tynan, and I am very excited today to be joined by Dr. Jonathan Cooper with Westbury Animal Hospital. We're hoping to have a really great conversation about the state of veterinary medicine and the veterinary industry and how that is affecting vets and vet techs and pet owners alike. So to start, if you could just jump right in, introduce yourself, tell us about your journey through veterinary medicine, how you got to where you are today.
All right. I went to high school here in Houston at Kincaid High School, and I went to undergrad at A&M and was always interested in science, always interested in medicine growing up. I didn't know that I was going to be a veterinarian until probably I stepped into veterinary school, which is not a usual path.
Wow.
Most kids are, they want to be veterinarians from the time they're little. Wasn't really my path, but I was always interested in medicine and science. After I finished my undergrad, I started a PhD in veterinary physiology and pharmacology, and that's where I developed my interest in veterinary medicine. My mentor was a veterinarian with a PhD. So I just sort of applied to veterinary school and was fortunate to get in, and probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in terms of business. And after I graduated from veterinary school, just took another year or so to finish my dissertation, and then started practicing. It was at one or two places until I ended up at Westbury Animal Hospital, which is where I've been since 1997, and I think the most wonderful place to work. I have just great partners, great staff, wonderful clients. So it's just been a wonderful career for me.
And it's great that you've had such a positive path along the way. I know some veterinary paths are a little bit more herky-jerky, so it's good that you've landed in a place that you love. I want to talk a little bit about the current state of veterinary medicine and how specifically how the pandemic has affected things, but sort of overall, because people show up to the vet, they get their animals treated, they go home, they don't really know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, sure. It's a struggle. I mean, like nothing I've ever seen before. The pressures that are put on the veterinary industry are just unprecedented, and so it's stressful. The day in for veterinarian or veterinary staff can be challenging from the moment you walk in the door until the time you leave. And so lots of stressors and different opinions of what has happened during the pandemic. The early discussions was, well, all this increased business is from adoptions and during the pandemic and people adopting pets. I think the reality is that there's probably some truth to that, but if you look at the actual data in terms of adoptions from shelters were down during 2020 and 2021. And so really that maybe contributes, adoption's a small percentage of it, but probably, during that time, there was not a lot of intakes to the shelters. And so certainly adoptions occurring through foster organizations, but probably adoptions alone can't account for this tremendous surge in business. And some of that now, I think, is just people catching up from what didn't occur during the start of the pandemic. I think also people being at home more and being around their pets more, and just being aware that, oh, gosh, I need to get Fluffy to the vet.
Right.
And then also, I think more services are being provided. In part, I think because people have some discretionary income that maybe didn't go to travel or didn't go to eating out or doing things that they would have otherwise done. So what I see is, more dentistries, more, hey, we missed that last year. Can we do that? And so, so it's just a lot of stresses there from a lot of services and a lot of people coming through the door.
So business has been booming, which is a good thing, but you've seen a lot of people maybe you haven't seen in many years, and maybe people who've never taken their pet to a vet before. That can provide some friction.
Yeah, correct. So just the volume is certainly there. And then there are some inefficiencies, I think, that happen as a result of the pandemic. Some of the curbside things that were going on where rather than people coming in the building, we were having to go out to the car, take a history. It's not the best environment to get a history or talk to a client. It's hot outside. Pets are stressed, and we have to bring that animal inside, do our physical exam. If it's x-rays or lab work, trying to communicate with the owner, going back out of the car. So I think the biggest stresses or stressors are just the inefficiencies in the way we practice now.
Right.
And so what that's led to is some burnout, some compassion fatigue, and so that's been a real struggle.
So I want to go a little bit. That was a perfect segue. I want to go a little deeper into what compassion fatigue is, because if somebody doesn't work in a caregiving industry like veterinary medicine, they may have never heard that term before.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what is compassion fatigue and what can cause it, what can be the result.
Yeah, I think the people who gravitate towards veterinary medicine, if it's veterinary assistants and technicians, they're there because they love animals and they're compassionate, they're kind people, and they love animals. And so they're not there for a big paycheck. They're
Right.
there because they love animals. And so what happens in compassion fatigue is that it's just a stressful environment where there's a lot of challenges, and there's sick animals. It's not just puppies and kitties, and so they come in, they've been hit by a car or torn up, lacerations of some animal abuse, and that's hard. I mean, and so at some point it just becomes tiring. Just at the end of the day, just sort of worn out. It's just stressful, and you only have so much to give.
Right.
And so that's what I see.
And when somebody is suffering from compassion fatigue or from burnout, do they stay in the job or do they leave?
Yeah, another issue is that some people just they'll leave the profession, or they won't. I think that's one of the more common issues, that they'll leave the profession, and so that has created kind of a labor crisis amongst veterinarians and veterinary support staff. Is an exit, and some of the data right now shows that probably 40% of veterinarians are considering leaving the profession, not for retirement, and probably more so in younger veterinarians than older veterinarians. And so that's a staggering number when you consider 40% of veterinarians are considering stepping away from the profession before their retirement. And you ask some of those veterinarians and veterinary staff, would you do this again? And it's not always a rosy answer, because it's not sometimes what they thought they were getting into.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
It's very sad. I have friends who are veterinarians who, when a young person in high school or college maybe is saying, "Oh, what do I do to become a veterinarian?" and they say, "Don't." And it's heartbreaking. And I'm wondering if that on the other end, incoming vets, if there's a shortage there too, are people just not going to vet school anymore?
I think they're still going, but I think people are looking for a better work-life balance, which is important. And so right now, that's a challenge, finding a work. We have two opposing forces just colliding. You have people who want more of a work-life balance, which I strongly encourage, and you have this opposing force with this increased demand for services and people trying to get in to see their veterinarian. So those two don't mix.
Right.
And when those two collide, then you have a real problem. So there is some growth in the industry, but you're also seeing people who are wanting, like, I don't want to work 60 hours a week. I want to, I've got a family, I've got kids, I've got a dog I want to get home to, and this is just pulling at me too hard, and so that's a challenge.
And do you think if there's a struggle between work-life balance and there's a struggle between so many new people getting new pets or suddenly realizing, oh, I have to take care of my pet, where do you see a solution? How do you make everything balance out so that there are enough vets for the number of pets?
Yeah, I think it's a complex problem, and so I think the solution isn't just pouring more veterinarians into the mix, because that will take years and years and years, and pouring more support staff in, it probably is not the answer, but leveraging those staff or those employees to be more efficient, I think is a part of the solution. Using technology to be more efficient. If it's telemedicine, if it's leveraging staff, if it's technology, collectively, hopefully that makes this environment more appealing and hopefully a little bit better for everybody.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to ask about, and this is more about, Westbury specifically, and your experience. We're fortunate to have Westbury Animal Hospital as a partner for Houston PetSet, and one of the services that you help us with is seeing animals who have been pulled off the street or who have been abused or who even are coming in from domestic violence situations. And so maybe not every, city veterinarian or rural vet is seeing that kind of trauma, really. Yeah. And how is that affecting your clinic, and what do you want people to know about that kind of work you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think our situation is a little different than others in that we have an ICU and it's 24-hour care, and we will see just about anything that comes through the door. So on a Saturday or Sunday, if it's 30 emergencies that come through, it can be trying. So perhaps other veterinarians their experience might be a little bit different than mine or ours, but our experience is we see a lot of cases, and some of those are challenging cases or complicated cases, and they come in at 2 a.m. or at midnight or whenever, and it can be a mixed bag. It can be vomiting or diarrhea, or it can be a gunshot, or it can be just a horrible abuse case. And so one thing that I just hope people can understand is just to be patient. And it could be 30 minutes or it could be 4 hours. And we need to set their expectations to say, it's gonna be a little bit. We're trying to triage all these cases. But so if people, I think, understand what we're dealing with behind the curtains, when we say we're gonna take this dog to the back, what does that mean? That it's organized chaos and there's a lot going on. And so just if people can be understanding what we're dealing with this influx of cases.
I think just be nice. Right?
Just be nice. Just be nice. I don't know when that fell out of favor, but just be kind and be nice. I think it's difficult for people when they don't, for us at least, when people don't understand what we're up against, and being, sometimes people are just not pleasant. Yeah. And they'll use social media to be not pleasant. And that can be difficult for young veterinarians and old veterinarians when you're trying so hard and you put your heart and soul into this case, and it doesn't go well, or the outcomes are not always great. And that's hard. And then to sometimes that not be appreciated, either by financially not being compensated, or just people not being aware of the challenges we're up against.
I want to just briefly touch on it because it is a difficult subject to talk about, but some of our listeners might not know that veterinarians as a profession are the number one profession most likely to die by suicide. And that can be shocking if someone has never heard that before. Do you think what you just talked about contributes to that?
I think it plays a role for sure. And I know veterinarians have left this profession or gone on to work in different aspects of the profession because of those stressors. And it just pushed people away. And, everyone has a breaking point, and it's just very, very sad. And that's a reality. It's the suicide rate is probably 3 times higher than most any other profession. And you wonder, why is that? And it's because of the stress that's placed on veterinarians. And I think I can only surmise it under that much duress. We relieve pain and suffering every day. I mean, every day there's a euthanasia. And that's an act of kindness and an act of love. And it's letting this creature that's suffering be in a better place. Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine that someone who's suffering and is struggling, we see that as an out. And it's just very sad. And certainly that group, Not One More Vet, pushed very hard to try to combat that. And it's unfortunate.
If anyone is curious, the group you just mentioned it's a nonprofit organization. It's called Not One More Vet, and the goal is to give folks an outlet, someplace they can feel safe and talk and hopefully avoid any more suicides in the profession. So I encourage people to look that up and see what's going on and understand And maybe that will help them be a little bit more compassionate and kinder towards their veterinarians and veterinary staff.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So on a brighter note,
Yes.
so I want to end this on a positive note, because we're talking to pet owners and we're talking to people who maybe are new pet owners, who just because, like you said, the pandemic, there are a lot of new pets coming in. We don't know where they're coming from, but they're there. If somebody's, just got a new pet, or maybe this is the first time since they were a kid, what should they keep in mind as a new pet owner? What's a veterinary schedule? What do they need to pay attention to? When should they come see you? When should they say, oh, it's okay, I can watch and see?
Sure. If they've adopted a puppy recently, it would be a good idea to have that pet examined and have a veterinarian do a thorough exam and nose to tail and establish a relationship with the veterinarian and someone that you feel comfortable with, that you can relate to. And so shortly after getting a new pet, I would strongly encourage him to have that pet checked out, immunized. So vaccines are important. And then as far as when that pet needs to be seen, if it's sick or not, I feel like if it's important to them, it's important to me. So if you see something that you're concerned about, come in. I learned that a long time ago. If it's important to them, it's important to me. And so don't hesitate to call and come in.
I know I'm one of those pet owners where as soon as something is wrong, I call my vet or I email them. They're great about email. And I know this is like the 6th time you've heard from me in a couple of weeks, but I think from the other side, I'd rather know that I have pet parents who are observing their pets and taking care of them than someone who's not paying attention 100%. At all.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I want someone who's invested in this, and we want to be invested with them.
Absolutely. So. Well, I cannot tell you how appreciative I am for you joining us today. I'm filling in for Tina and Tama, and so you got the B team here.
You're doing a great job.
But we're really grateful, not just for you being here, but for your partnership with Westbury Animal Hospital and with Houston PetSet, and hopefully together and with the folks listening, we can all make Houston a better city for animals and for pet parents. So. Yeah. Thank you so much. And for folks who are maybe looking for a new vet, there's Westbury Animal Hospital. They're fantastic down in Bellaire.
Thank you.
And keep an eye on it. And we're so grateful. Thank you, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you. And Houston PetSet is a wonderful organization.
Thank you.
Really, y'all do a great job.
We're just happy to help. And we know Houston needs it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.